In this video, I'm going to share with you 14 must-read books about South Asia that will hopefully make you understand more about the countries and their people. South Asia region is home to 1.5 billion people and has very rich culture that is unfortunately often overlooked. In today's video, I'm going to share with you 14 must-read books from South Asia where hopefully it will give you a better understanding of what an amazing region it is with super rich culture, amazing people, and awesome food. If you're like me, you probably don't really know a lot about South Asia, except that it has a lot of people, it's hot, and it has amazing food. But there's so many books out there that actually talk more about them and give you a better understanding. And this is why I decided that, you know what, let me just pick up those books that I have read by South Asian authors and some other people as well, where the stories are taking place in a South Asian country. Now, the countries that I'm included as part of the South Asian region are Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, the Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. I have visited some of these countries. I have been to India once, where I have visited Goa. That was a really long time ago. And I have to say that my experience in Goa was totally different to what I expected from what an Indian city is going to be. And that's why a lot of my friends told me that Goa is a little bit different. It's much more Portuguese than you would think that it's Indian. But I love the people there. They were very friendly. The food was awesome. And I would really like to visit India again. Another country where I have visited as well is the Maldives. I've been there twice. I was in my teenage years, so I've been there with my family. And it's such a lovely place. Beautiful beaches, amazing sea. I just wanted to swim the whole time. A little bit expensive if you ask me, but it's a really nice chill out place where you just, there's nothing else to do but sit next to the beach, tan and swim. I've been to Nepal twice. The first time was just to explore Kathmandu and Nagarkut. I just wanted to be as close to Mount Everest as I can, which resulted in me going back to Nepal again for my 40th birthday, where I wanted to attempt to go to the Everest base camp. Was an extraordinary experience. It didn't go according to plan, unfortunately, but I went as far as I could go. And I have to say, it was a very challenging experience, but an experience that I think if you're a hiker, if you like trekking, I think you should make an attempt to do it once in your life. I've been to Sri Lanka twice. I just recently came back from there. My first trip was with my sister in 2014, I think, where I visited Dambulla, Kandy, and Nuwara. And I have to say, Nuwara is one of my favorite cities. When the borders finally opened in Australia, I'm like, you know what, I really would like to go to Sri Lanka again because I loved the nature. I loved how everything is it feels so untouched. And they have one of the most amazing spicy food ever. I'm a huge fan of Sri Lankan food. I think I was stuffing my face with fish curry the whole time. So in this trip, we've been to Kandy, we've been to Nuwara again, and we've been to, finally I wanted to experience their beaches, so we went to Unawatuna. Now, my experience with Sri Lanka this time was a little bit different, because we trekked in a very remote area, and we were meeting people from the villages with their kids and very friendly dogs. everywhere. It's the closest that I could get to nature, and I think I really needed that. Just to put it out there, Sri Lanka is not really doing very well at the moment. They are on the verge of a collapse, but that did not stop us from going and enjoying their hospitality. And honestly, like I would want more people to visit that country once they are a little bit more stable. I think we left at the right time. Do visit Sri Lanka if you ever get a chance. And one more country that I am yet to visit, but I'm going to visit hopefully this September, is going to be Pakistan. I am really looking forward to that trip, where I'm looking forward to try their local street foods and go up north and see their nature. So this covers my traveling. Okay, wasn't planned to actually mention it, but I'm like, you know what, let's just put it out there. So let's get back to books. Sit back and relax, and let's learn something new about these books. So these are fiction books. These are not non-fiction or travel books or anything. These are written mostly by South Asian authors. I've mentioned some other books that were written by other people, but they were taking place in South Asia. And do let me know if you have read any of these books and what did you feel about them, and if you think that I should explore different authors from the same region. The first book is The White Tiger by Aravind Adiga. This is one hilarious book. I think it was one of my first South Asian books that I picked up. And I have to say, I really enjoyed it. I was cracking up the whole time. This book was raw. There's a lot of language in it that I did not expect in a book like that. I read it way before that there was any talk of movie adaptation. And when I watched it recently, I was like, okay, fine. This is exactly like the book. I enjoyed this. Goodreads rating for this is 3.75. I give it a 3 stars. It's a very short book. You can finish it in no time. If you want to have a good laugh, pick up this book. The second one is The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy. I've read this book recently. I think I read this book last year, but this was my second attempt. Very raw book. It's either that you like this book or you don't like this book. It's a story about twins where they develop different kind of feelings and emotions because they get separated and then reconnected at a later stage of their lives. It was really difficult to read. There were some parts, particularly the ending, that did not go very well with me. Goodreads rating for this one is 3.95. I gave it 2.6. Don't let me stop you from reading it because, as I said, it's either that you like it or you don't like it. It's considered one of those must-read books of a South Asian author, and it is worth a shot. The third book is Interpreter of Maladies by Jhumpa Lahiri. I didn't know that this was a collection of short stories, and I generally don't really pick them up, but I loved those stories. They were beautiful. The stories were more to do with the relationships, immigrations, living in India, and a lot of other stuff that felt very raw, felt very connected. You get connected a lot with some of the characters. Some of the stories were very, very powerful. I really enjoyed this. It's a very short book. Goodreads rating for this is 4.17. I gave this book 3 stars. And because of the power of the writing, I added another book for her, The Namesake. Although I did watch the movie several times, but I really want to read the book because I have a feeling that the book would be much, much, much stronger. The next one, and this is considered one of my all-time favorite books, so it's actually in my top 10 favorite books, is A Fine Balance by Rohinton Mistry. I talked about this book before. This was the book that I took with me to my trip to Nepal for my 40th birthday, and it holds a very special place in my heart because I needed to read it during that trip particularly on my birthday. As I said, that trip did not really go according to plan. And probably this was not the right book to actually read, if I am being very honest, because it was a heartbreaking book. The story about four people who meet in the weirdest kind of circumstances. They just develop a special bond between them. It shows how life is, how unfortunate people are. It casts a lot of light on poverty, slums, the casting system, and because of the power of the writing, I have added more than a book for him. I just want to read more by this author. A good read rating for this book is 4.36. I gave this book 5 stars. Please pick up this book if you want something amazing to read. And a list about South Asia cannot go without mentioning one of my all-time favorite authors, Khaled Hosseini. I have read 3 of his main works, 1,000 Splendid Sun, and The Mountain Echoed, and of course, The Kite Runner. This is not just an author that is amazing as a storyteller, but he just shows you what kind of terrible things are happening in Afghanistan. And unfortunately, we're reliving this again right now. I'm sure a lot of people are very familiar with at least one of these books. If I have to rate one of them as my all-time favorite, is 1,000 Splendid Suns. It's a beautiful book. Good read rating for this is 4.4. I gave this 5 stars. Good read rating for this and The Mountains Echoed is 4.06, and I gave it a 3 stars. And The Kite Runner was 4.32, and I gave it a 3 stars. Obviously, as you can see, I really, really liked this one. The relationship between the two main characters was just heartbreaking, and everything that happens there is, I don't want to say that it doesn't really happen in real life. It does. And I think that's why the impact is different. So if you haven't read any of these books and you are interested in Khaled Hosseini, please pick up this book. Next is 2 books that I have read for Mohsin Hamid. The first one is The Reluctant Fundamentalist and Exit West. I thought that the author has a very unique way of writing. Especially The Reluctant Fundamentalist. It's a book that happens in Pakistan. In this book, it really tells you more about how the West stereotypes brown people and how that can actually turn very ugly eventually. I did enjoy it. I watched the movie as well. Exit West was was more to do with a fantasy book, and it didn't really happen in Pakistan, but I'm just mentioning it because that's his second book. Good read rating for that book was 3.72. I gave this book 3 stars. So I finished the books that were written by South Asian authors. I'm going to be talking about books that were taking place in South Asia, but they were written by non-South Asian authors. The first book that comes to mind, of course, is Shantaram by the Australian author Gregory David Roberts. This is one book that is actually in my top 10 favorite books. As you can see, the book is really, really worn out. I read this book in 2006. At that time, I had a job where I used to travel a lot for work. So this book used to travel with me wherever I go. I love this book. I love the writing. It's very engaging. You cannot put it down. It's a story about the author and his life in India, where he experienced Mumbai, the slums, the underworld, drug trafficking, and being in jail as well. It's sort of like it gives you a very real feel of how life is in Mumbai. Good read rating for this book is 4.25. Obviously, I gave this book 5 stars. I know that he has released another book for him, but because I don't want to ruin how I feel about this book, I don't think I'm going to pick up another one for him. I don't know, I'm weird that way. But yeah, another one is Siddhartha by the German-Swiss author Hermann Hesse. This is a beautiful book. I read this last year, and it's a very short story, very spiritual. There's a lot of philosophy there. The narration was beautiful. I did this as an audiobook, and I think it was, to me, although I am not really so deep into Buddhism and stuff like that, but I found it very therapeutic. It was so calming, and I really enjoyed it. And it does take place in India. Goodread rating for this book is 4.05. I gave this a 3.5. If this is more of your genre, then I would recommend picking up this book. Next one is East of the Sun by the British author Julia Gregson. This is a really cute story that I read a really long time ago, I think in 2009. It's a story about three young women that travel to India, and they experience friendship, love, and getting to know a different culture and get to know people as well. It was beautifully written. Goodread rating for this is 3.69. I gave this book 4 stars. The next one is, of course, Life of Pi by the Spanish-Canadian author Yann Martel. Who doesn't know anything about this book? This is a magical book. I read this almost the same time when the movie was about to be released. So I really rushed myself to read this, but not that I did not enjoy it. I loved it. It was so magical. It's so colorful, and I loved the tiger. I loved everything about what it could actually mean. There was a lot of metaphors in this book. Goodread rating for this is 3.93. I gave this book 4 stars. And the last book is Born Under a Million Shadows by the British author Andrea Busfield. This takes you to Afghanistan, and it's a relationship between a British woman and an Afghani warlord. Beautifully written. I read this a few years ago, and I thought it was a very interesting story. There was a lot of comparison between this author and Khaled Hosseini. Of course, both of them are completely different. The writing is different. Honestly, you cannot just simply compare both of them. Khaled Hosseini is in a different par. Goodread rating for this book is 4.01. I gave this book 3 stars. So this is all the books that I would highly recommend that you pick up and read. You may not want to read all of them. Just pick up which one you think is closer to where you would like to, learn about or get to know the region. I think, as I said, there is a lot of material out there. I myself know that I will be exploring more books, more authors, and more stories about South Asia, because again, this is a very underrated region where there's so much to give, so much to know. And despite whatever you see in the news, okay, these are beautiful places with very welcoming people and amazing food, of course. If we just put our differences on the side, I think these are the places where you will get to experience nature at its best. Thank you so much for watching my video. I really hope that you enjoyed it. And until the next time, bye!